Let's look back at Dhoni and his team season though. Chennai Super Kings, what sort of season have they had? Defending champions, plenty that was said about them. But we will, in spite of the great things we've said about Shane Watson and the fine innings that he's had, go with a lack of good starts in the power play. It seems like that's been a pattern. And if we're going through this, Ajit, we got 17 innings and Chennai on top for the poorest run rate. Factor in what they had to do with the Chepauk and some low scores. But is that something that they need to look at in also losing the most number of wickets in the power play?
Yeah, they've got to. I mean, I don't think... I think they've overachieved in terms of getting to the finals because MS Dhoni bailed them out a lot of times. The bowling at Chepauk kept teams to a score which was then chaseable or defended low totals at times. The batting hasn't been good enough. I think in finals was another example. The likes of Raidu, Watson himself, okay, leave a couple of innings through the course of the season. Faf was the only guy who looked like in consistent form. Raina, Kedar Jadhav early part of the tournament, then went, obviously till his injury hasn't had. Bravo and Jadeja haven't had much to do with the bat. So the batting's definitely let them down, I think, and eventually cost them the final. Okay, MS Dhoni's run out might have had a big factor in it, but you look at the likes of Raina and Raidu, they're important players. Again, letting them down in a smallish chase.
Is there a need for a change in personnel? Now, will Faf and Shane Watson be the same opening pair first game next season? They started with Ambati Raidu after the season he had last year. Do they need more options as reserve openers? Thoughts from you, Dan?
No, I think they can continue with this group. I think the final finally caught them out with their lack of runs. Up until the end, they've been able to survive it through a number of different things. But I still believe that they will think that group, particularly the Indian batsmen, I think they'll think that Kedar Yadav can have a better season, Raidu can have a better season, Suresh Raina can definitely have a better season. So I think that's the group they'll back, and then they'll mix and match with their openers, overseas openers, depending on who's there.
Then I'll take you on the same point. Is there a need for more reserves in the Indian batting deep? Because even when
they already have someone like Dhruv Shore, he's a really good batsman, youngster from Delhi and all. But what they have to make sure that, Kedar is playing domestic cricket. Raidu is playing domestic cricket. He's already taken retirement from 4-day cricket. So they've got to make sure that Raina, Raidu, Kedar are playing domestic cricket. If they're not part of the Indian setup, they have to keep playing cricket right through the next 12 odd months before the next IPL. Because obviously Suresh is a good example of not playing enough cricket coming into IPL. The first half of the IPL was very ordinary for him. Then he started getting some runs. Listen, it's not easy. IPL at this level is not easy. You've got to keep playing cricket there. And with Raidu not being part of the Indian setup, Kedar, I don't know what's going to happen after World Cup. They've got to keep playing domestic cricket.
Okay. What about the spinners? That's our next point. While they haven't had the most success in the power play with the bat, boy, have the spinners come good for Chennai Super Kings with the ball. Let's have a look at the numbers collectively of Harbhajan Singh, Imran Tahir, Ravindra Jadeja, a little bit of Mitchell Santner in that as well. And in 2019, that is the most number of wickets taken by a spin unit in a single season in the history of the IPL. 62 wickets is 10 better than Kolkata last season, and an economy rate of under 7, a strike rate of 17.4. How much of this needs to be viewed with the lens of the infamous or famous Chepauk pitch, Daniel?
A small amount, but I think that's home advantage. You want to make the most of it, you want to utilise it, and because all three are such good bowlers, they can be used in other wickets, and I think they mixed the match a little bit with Harbhajan, but Jadeja and Imran Tahir were constants throughout the season, and they were absolutely brilliant. And the other factor is that Dhoni just knows how to use them perfectly. He uses them at the right times, great matchups, and a real understanding of when a spin bowler is bowling well, when to use them and when to pull back. He pulled back on Jadeja today because he thought the seamers were a better option, and I think that's what we see from him. He has a real good feel for how his spinners are going.
By the next IPL, Ajit, Imran Tahir will be 40, Harbhajan Singh will be 39, Jadeja's fine, but is there a need for added reinforcement, not just with spin but with the ball, if they do come up and play games at pitches which aren't like the Chepauk?
Seam bowling they surely can look at. I think Willie is part of their setup.
Lungi Ngidi and Willie were both
Ngidi, I think, was
injured.
big for them last year. I think Karan Sharma is still...
Karan Sharma is there. They had KM Asif who played a little bit last year.
At the moment, you don't quite know what's happening with Imran Tahir and Harbhajan going forward next year. But they'll probably know in the next few months if they are going to be around another season or not. So then you look at replacements. Otherwise, at the moment, especially with their conditions, they have enough in the reserve. Seam bowling is definitely that they'll hope that Ngidi is fit. If that is the case, then it gives you that firepower when you travel away from Chennai. Then it makes the bowling a bit formidable. Sometimes they fell a little bit short this year. with their seamers, because Chahar was, as well as he was bowling, he was mainly used in the power play or earlier on, and
Basically
towards
the death
end.
overs,
Yeah. I mean, Bravo came good after his injury, which if he can continue then gives them an option. But otherwise they need somebody to bowl towards the end of the innings.
Don't put it past all of them coming up nearing 40 and winning next year's IPL, because that's just a Chennai Super Kings thing, and that's because most conventional wisdom is defied by Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who is our third and final point of Chennai season review. We have arguably seen the best of Dhoni personally with bat, forget tactically because he's brilliant at that every year. But Deep, 9 innings, 245 runs, strike rate of 185, dismissed just twice, one of them run out, and this is in over 17 to 20, beg your pardon. So brilliant at the death. MS Dhoni, take a few seconds and tell me if this is the best that you've seen Dhoni bat in IPL history.
Yes, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, the way he's batted, I mean, he's the only standout batsman for CSK this season. If you look at his average, or just forget the averages, the number of games that he's actually won with his bat, or been able to put up respectable totals on the board. So I think as a batsman was a standout season for him. I haven't seen him bat as well as this in IPL before.
It's back-to-back IPL seasons with the bat now. What's it about Dhoni and his approach in perhaps this year's IPL that, if you saw, if at all, anything that's different from last year's?
I think he had to do a lot more work than last year. I think there was a Raidu who was in really good form last year. There was Raina who got some runs. Watson was not as, didn't have as tough a season as he did this year. So there were guys around him who were doing okay. This year he's had to sort of, a lot of the games they've been in trouble. I mean, you look at the batting numbers, and he's had to come when there were a lot more runs required. Usually he's fine, or he usually comes in when there's about 60, 50, 60, 70 required. There were times when there were, I mean, the RCB game is a classic example. They lost by a run, but single-handedly got that 84 to get them anywhere close. And he's played quite a few of those innings, which made it an even better season, because most games when you've had to do it on your own is always a lot tougher. I mean, if you have help around, guys around you, you don't really necessarily worry. That's why, for me, I think it was much better than last season, because of the amount of games he had to do it on his own.
Brilliant with the bat and very good with the gloves. I can't remember a time where he put one down this season, MS Dhoni. But we're just going to have a quick look at the most dismissals as a wicketkeeper in IPL, and it is after he's taken the catch today of Rohit Sharma that he's gone to 132, pipping Dinesh Karthik for the most dismissals in the history of the tournament. There's one thing that you think, or rather the most important thing that Dhoni would want to take away from this season, from next year, Daniel, if you're sitting with the leadership group, if you're Stephen Fleming right now talking to Dhoni, what about this season would perhaps hurt most, and what is it that he'd want to fix first up next season, if you were to think about it?
It's hard to be...
To pinpoint?
To feel like the season is... They made the final. They were one ball away from winning, so I'd hate for it to be a review around what went wrong, because it was a magical season for them. They played so well. They were consistent, and they deserve to be in the final. And just like Mumbai, they've been two of the two best teams so far in the IPL. So I don't think they're going to sit around and say, what could we have done better, because they got so close. Because they always expect improvement, irrespective of who's there. So I think, like we talked about before, it'll be those three Indian batsmen, that middle order. If they come back to their normal self, then Chennai is dangerous once again.
Now the tricky part about this is the fact that all these contracts are for 3 years. So next year they'll complete the 3 years. So they will only have a big auction 2 years from now. So next year it's not going to be a big auction. It's going to be a smaller auction, and obviously the talent pool available will also be smaller. So that's the tricky part for CSK. So what do they do? I mean, do they change now or hold on for another year and wait for the big auction or not? So that'll be the tricky question.
There might be a lot more Aussies in the auction next year. They all pulled out this season, but we'll see what sort of reinforcements MS Dhoni and CSK look at for the next IPL. But like Dan quite nicely points out, it's not necessarily been a season that they need to be disappointed with. They made the final nearly 1 hit of the last ball.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section below. Click on the bell icon for notifications.